This is cybersecurity basics, protecting your business in a digital world, or the short title is cybersecurity for beginners. Um, and there will be time to ask questions later. The presentation will take approximately 45 to 50 minutes. Um, and as I say, anybody who attends today will get a summary copy of this presentation afterwards. C&T Associates provides a range of support for businesses, both locally and throughout the wider London area and throughout the UK. Our contact details are on this presentation. And as you've all registered with us, you will have our email addresses. So please contact us if you want to know anything more about our services. We do have a YouTube channel as well. And as I said earlier, this presentation will be on the YouTube channel within 2 weeks. So without any more ado, I'll hand over to my colleague, Sybil Mayars. Sybil, over to you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Sybil is controlling the presentation. So what we've got today is the introduction and then some information about the costs of not being secure, security posture, common types of cyber threats and attacks. So we're going to look at some of those. Asset management and cybersecurity measures that you should implement. These are often quite basic, but very, very important. Then there's going to be some information on incident response and a range of other cybersecurity tips, some information on training and awareness, and cyber essentials, and then some useful links and a glossary of terms. So back over to you, Sybil. Okay, thank you. Just to introduce myself briefly, I'm the managing director of C&T Associates. The company's been around for 20 years. I've been managing director for 10 years. We're based in Southeast London, and we provide a range of business support, funding and funding application writing services, and a range of digital services, one of which you're going to see this morning. Next slide, please, Sybil.
Thank you, Gary. So I'm going to introduce myself. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sybil, and I am the Digital Services Consultant for C&T Associates. So I provide website design and also other related digital services to small businesses, helping them to make the most of technology. And I've worked with businesses from a range of different industry sectors, including creative sector, e-commerce, brands, tech companies, well-being organizations, and many others. So in today's presentation, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, what it is, why it's important, and how you can protect your business from cyber threats. So let's start with what is cybersecurity. So there is a definition here on the screen. Cybersecurity helps individuals and organizations reduce the risk and impact of cyber attacks. So as businesses, we hold large amounts of data, both on our physical devices and also in the cloud. And that data is very valuable to us. Something that's valuable to an organization is known as an asset, and data is one of our most valuable assets. Unfortunately, there are people out there, we call them hackers, attackers, malicious actors, cyber criminals, however you want to call them, but there are people out there with bad intentions who want to get hold of our data, our assets. And cybersecurity is all about protecting our assets from those online threats. So that's what we're going to talk about today, protecting our digital services and devices from those threats. So why is cybersecurity important? So let's start with some statistics here. So according to the Cybersecurity Breaches Survey 2025, which is on the gov.uk website, just over 4 in 10 businesses, 43%, and 3 in 10 charities, 30% reported having experienced any kind of cybersecurity breach or attack in the last 12 months. So these are high figures. They are slightly lower than the previous year's figures, but they are still high. And our job is to get those figures down. And I'm confident that we can do that by making sure we have the right security controls in place, which is what this presentation is about today. What are the costs of not being secure? So if your organization is not secured and you suffer from a cyber attack, then these are some of the potential consequences. You could lose some revenue. You could suffer from reputational damage, loss of trust. Many people say that they would be reluctant or they would not purchase from an organization, or they wouldn't want to deal with them again if that organization had suffered from a cyber attack. You may receive customer complaints. You might get a regulatory fine if you suffer from a data breach. So data breach is when some data that your company holds is accessed by an unauthorized person. And unfortunately, loss of your business is also a potential consequence. So many of us have heard about the big retail giants, Marks and Spencer's, Co-op, Harrods, for example, in the headlines. These large businesses, yes, they do suffer from big impacts of cyber attacks, but in time they will recover because they have the resources to deal with these incidents. However, for a small business, just one cyber attack could be detrimental. The whole business could shut down potentially. And the reason is smaller businesses just don't have the resources. They don't always have a dedicated IT team to protect them. And that's why small businesses in particular are vulnerable. And that's why cybersecurity is so important to us as small businesses. So there's a term called the security posture, which is an organization's ability to manage its defense of critical assets and data and react to change. So what that means is basically how well prepared your organization is, how well defended, how well protected it is against online threats. And as I'm going through this presentation, I'd just like you to think about your own organization on a scale of 0 to 10. Where does your business lie? Is it on the near the 0 end where you don't have any security measures in place? Or is it closer to 10 where you have most of, or all of the measures in place and your organization is very well protected? Or maybe it's somewhere in the middle. So I want you to keep this in mind as we go through the different aspects of cybersecurity. So I think it's very important to adopt a security mindset. So this is all about having the right thoughts, having the right the right mindset as you go about your daily tasks in your business. So it's common to think that your organization is too small to be hacked because cyber criminals only target the large businesses, but this is simply not true. Yes, cyber criminals target big businesses because there's more money involved, there's more reward. But the truth is, as we briefly spoke about, small businesses are often more vulnerable. And cyber criminals don't necessarily look for the big targets, they look for the easy targets. And because the small businesses don't always have the protections in place, they tend to become those easy targets. So that's why small businesses, we need to be very mindful of cybersecurity. Never think that it won't happen to you. You need to be alert at all times. Cyber attacks could happen to anyone, whether you're an individual, a sole trader, a charity, a profit-making business, small business, large corporate, every organization is vulnerable. And also, you should never think that cybersecurity is not your responsibility. That it's only the responsibility of your IT team if you have one, or your leadership team. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility because the smallest mistake can lead to the largest damage. You can click a link in a phishing email and think about how that small, seemingly small mistake can escalate and cost, turn into a large incident and potentially cost your entire organization. So again, everyone needs to be alert and vigilant at all times, no matter what your role is in your organization. So here are some common types of cyber threats and attacks. Now, there are so many of these, and more threats are evolving every day. So we can't go through all of them, but here are the most common ones that you might encounter. Social engineering. This is a threat that takes advantage of the fact that we as humans make mistakes. We are not always paying attention to what we do. We sometimes we sometimes act without thinking first. And social engineering is basically exploiting that human error. So phishing is one of the most common threats. That's why it's listed first. And we're going to look at a phishing email example in a second. So a phishing email is an email designed to trick you into either revealing personal information or your login details or installing malware on your system. Smishing is a similar form to phishing, except it's sent via an SMS message. Quishing, this is a newer threat, so it's using malicious QR codes to get you into revealing that information. Tech support scams, so these are where you click on a dodgy link and suddenly your computer screen gets filled with pop-ups saying your computer has an error. You need to phone this Windows support number. If that happens to you, never call the number that's shown on the screen because it's fake. If you do that, you'll be connected to a cyber criminal who's there to install malware on your computer, pretending that they're doing some sort of test and fixing the error, which doesn't exist. And they may even demand some money for supposedly fixing the issue. So if you encounter a tech support scam, close your browser, restart your computer. There's nothing wrong with it. Just get rid of it. Get rid of the pop-ups. Impersonation and identity theft. So it's really important that you don't share personal information publicly online. We do enter a lot of personal information into our different accounts, bank accounts, accounting software, emails. So all of these accounts need to be secured properly, and we'll look at ways to do that later on. Malware is any software that's intended to harm your systems and computers. You need to protect against that. Ransomware is a type of malware. So ransomware will, if it's installed on your computer, it will encrypt everything, meaning that you won't be able to access your data. And the cyber criminals will ask for a ransom payment in exchange for giving you the decryption keys so you get access to your data again. Brute force attack. So this is when a hacker will try to guess your username and password combination. So they will try thousands, maybe millions of different password combinations until they find the right one that lets them into your system. Distributed denial of service, or DDoS attack. This happens when a malicious actor will flood your network with traffic, so your system shuts down and you're unable to continue operating your business online. Zero-day vulnerability. So software, take your browser for example, might have a vulnerability, which is a weakness, and this hasn't yet been detected by the software developers. However, it's already being exploited by cyber criminals. So they've already found the weakness and they got into your browser. Maybe they've installed some malware or they've stolen some of your data. And they've done that before the software developers have time to issue a fix or an update. That's why it's called 0 day, because the software developers haven't had any time to fix the vulnerability yet. Cryptojacking. You may be familiar with the process of mining for cryptocurrencies. So cryptojacking is where someone takes over your computer and uses it to mine cryptocurrencies, and you're not even aware of it until your computer starts slowing down or behaving erratically, or maybe even overheating. So they're benefiting from your resources. And lastly on here we have AI-driven threats. So these are becoming more common, unfortunately. Deep fakes, so these are fake images or videos that look very realistic. It's very difficult to tell the difference between a deep fake and a real video. It could be a video of someone impersonating the CEO of your company, for instance. Got to be really careful with these. Vishing, which is voice cloning. So this is a deep fake, but of a voicemail message that may sound again like one of your colleagues or maybe your CEO. And there's also advanced email phishing campaigns. So these are phishing emails that look very realistic, and it's difficult to tell unless you look very closely. So they can even target a specific person in your company. It might be sent from someone who's pretending to be your CEO, and it uses their exact tone of voice, and it really tricks you into believing it's a real email. That's a very quick overview of some common cyber threats. So we're going to look at a phishing email. So this is actually a real phishing email that was sent to one of my clients. And here are some clues which you need to look for, which could tell you whether the email is genuine or not. So this email here appears to come from a platform called Shopify. It's a very common, very popular e-commerce platform, and it was sent to the store owner. Now, first thing to look at is look at the email address that it's been sent to. So if you can look at my mouse pointer on the screen, if you can see that here, it says the sender's name is Shopify, but their email is admin@mycredential.eu, which obviously doesn't match. We've got a generic greeting here, dear account owner, rather than addressing the account owner by name. Then we've got some threats here. It's saying that if you don't resolve the issue, then they're going to temporarily limit what you can do with your account. And then over here as well, it says if you don't provide the information, you may lose the ability to accept payments on your store and you won't receive your payouts. So it uses this language which conveys a sense of urgency that you need to take action now, because if you don't, then your account will be limited or blocked. There's a grammatical error here. It says we have sent you an link rather than a link. Then finally at the bottom here, I'm not sure if this is very clear, but there's a very strange looking URL. So there's a green button that says update Shopify payments. So the email wants me to click that button. But if I hover over that button, I see the strange URL at the bottom of the screen. So that tells me it doesn't actually take me to the Shopify website. It will take me to a fake one. So if you ever see links in suspicious emails, never click the links, but you can hover over them, and then at the bottom of the screen it will tell you the URL it links to. So that should be enough to tell you that it's not a legitimate email. So you've got here, never click on links in suspicious emails, and don't download attachments because they could contain malware. Report the email via your email program before deleting it. Now, it's quite important you do that, because if you keep reporting these phishing emails, then over time your email program will get better at recognizing these phishing emails, and it will filter them out and send them into the junk folder. And if you're not sure whether the email is legitimate or not, never reply to it. However, contact the sender directly. So find out the actual contact information of the person or organization who supposedly sent the email. Look up their phone number, go to their website and get their actual contact details, and ask them, and they will tell you whether it's actually sent by them or not. That's the only way to, the best way to find out if it's genuine. Now, it's important to note that not all phishing emails will have all of these features. And as we said, because of the rise of AI, phishing emails are becoming more sophisticated, and which means it's more difficult to tell real and fake apart. So you've just got to really be aware whenever you receive something, maybe it doesn't feel right somehow. Just don't just take action straight away. Read the information carefully, and as we say, contact the person directly if you're really not sure. What you don't want to do is click those links or download any suspicious attachments. Okay, so smishing text, there's an example here of one that I received recently. These are very common. They usually impersonate legitimate organizations like banks or delivery services. But similar thing applies. Never click on the links. If you're unsure if it's real or not, contact the organization directly. Okay, moving on. Yeah, so we're going to start talking about what measures you can implement in your organization to protect against some of the threats that we mentioned. So, good cybersecurity starts with asset management, which is knowing what you own. You can't protect something if you don't know that you own it. And many of us own lots of data, not many devices, and we're not even aware of how much we have. So, good practice is to create an asset register. So, this could be as simple as a spreadsheet where you keep a record of all your assets. So this is not just hardware, but also software, any websites, any cloud accounts and social media accounts, etc. So you know exactly what you own, what are your assets, where they're located, who owns them or who's responsible for them. And this is very useful because if you're aware of what assets you hold, then this will determine what security measures you put in place in your organization. And it's also useful as well if one of your physical devices gets stolen. It's easy to keep track of things. So I highly recommend that you start with asset management. And at the end of this presentation, there's a link to a website which will go into more detail on how to create an asset register. Okay, starting with the first security control. So we've got two-factor authentication or 2FA. So this is a measure that requires a user to identify themselves in two ways before gaining access to the system, also known as two-step verification. And it provides an additional layer of security which is effective against brute force attacks. So we talked about hackers being able to guess your username and password combination. Even if they do manage to guess that combination, but if you have two-factor authentication in place, it would be very difficult for them to get into your account because they would need a second factor, which could be something like a one-time passcode or OTP, or they would need your fingerprint or facial scan. So it will be virtually impossible for them to get into your account. If you're setting up a one-time passcode in addition to your username and password, then you can do this with authentication apps, and there are many free apps out there. We've got 3 examples on the screen. And the first one here, this red one, is called Authy. Then we have Google Authenticator, and then there's Microsoft Authenticator. All these are free. So what you would do is usually go into your account, find the settings with two-factor authentication. They'll give you a barcode to scan or QR code to scan. So if you scan the QR code with one of these authentication apps, it will give you usually a 6-digit code which you put into the website. And then once you've done that, it's now set up. So whenever you log into your account the next time, as well as putting your username and password in, you'll need to go to your Authenticator app and get an additional code, which you also enter into the website before you can access your account. So it's simple to do, doesn't cost anything, but it's very effective. And you need to implement two-factor authentication on every account that supports it. During the process of setting this up, you might be asked to download or print recovery codes. If you do have that step, then make sure you do save the codes in a safe place, because if you lose your Authenticator app, then you could potentially lose access to your account. So the recovery code is a way of you being able to recover your code without the app. So make sure you save those in a safe place. Okay. Let's move on to protecting your passwords. So I'm sure we've all heard that we need to create strong passwords for all our accounts. And this table on the right hopefully explains why that's the case. The more complex your password is, the more difficult it is for a hacker to guess your password. And just adding a few extra characters or making it slightly more complex can make a big difference. So here are some guidelines on how to manage your passwords and how to create strong passwords. So use at least 8 characters if you've got two-factor authentication in place, at least 12 characters if you don't have it, and use a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols to make it more complex. Never write down your passwords. Don't use commonly used passwords like 123 or even the word password itself. Don't share your passwords with other users. Use unique passwords for each account. You don't want to be reusing the same password because if someone gets hold of it, they can potentially get hold of all of your accounts. What you should be using is a password manager. So this is an add-on you can install in your browser, and it will help you to generate strong randomized passwords, and it can also store your passwords so you won't have to worry about remembering them. And one popular one is LastPass, but there are many other options available. So let's quickly move on. So firewalls, a firewall is basically a filter which sits between your device's network and the internet. It's there to monitor incoming and outgoing traffic, and it blocks malicious requests. So some examples of firewalls are hardware firewalls. So for example, inside your router or your hub, there should be a built-in firewall. There are also software firewalls such as Norton Security and other malware protection programs, which we'll look into later on. And there's also something called a web application firewall or WAF. So this is a firewall which specifically protects websites and web applications. So you may or may not need one of those depending on what platform your website is built on. So we talked earlier about DDoS attacks, which are when your network gets flooded with traffic. So your firewall is one way to protect against those attacks. So make sure you have one in place. Operating system or OS security. So the first 3 bullet points apply whether you are on Windows or Mac. You need to keep the operating system of every device updated. The recommended update policy is to install all critical updates within 14 days of release. I personally think that's quite a long time, and I think it's better to install the updates as soon as possible. But that's what the recommended time frame is. Don't use software that has reached its end of life. So end of life means that the software vendor is no longer providing updates and technical support. So if you are on a Windows device, then after the 14th of October, Microsoft will no longer provide software updates, technical assistance, or security fixes for Windows 10. So if you are still using Windows 10, you need to upgrade your device to Windows 11 before this date, or you can switch to using a Mac. So yeah, so that is how to keep your operating system updated. Moving on to user access control. So this is about giving the right level of permissions to users in your organization. So if you're on a desktop or laptop device, there are two types of accounts. There are admins and there are standard users. So you don't want to be using an admin account for everyday tasks like browsing the internet and checking email. So one thing you might not be aware of is when you're signing into your laptop every day to do your everyday work, you may actually be signing into an admin account, and you don't want to be doing this. Reason being is if a hacker somehow got access to your laptop, they could potentially do whatever they wanted. They could get access to your data, they could install malware. So what you want to do is, if that's the setup you have, you need to create another account, which is an admin account. And then the account that you're normally using, downgrade that to a standard user, and then use that standard user account for your everyday work. You should only be using the admin account when installing a piece of software or not update or making configuration changes to a device. So in fact, you might not even need to actually log into the admin account. If you're logged into the standard account, you need to install some software. You may see a box like this one shown on the screen, where it's asking you to enter an admin's name and password to allow this. So you put the admin credential in, and then you can install the software and continue working on your standard user account. There's a concept called the principle of least privilege. This means that users should only be given the minimum level of access needed to perform their tasks. So don't give them more access than they need. Only give admin privileges to users who really need it. And if you're giving access to a file or folder, then if you can, it's a good idea to auto expire the access after a period of time. It's easy to forget that you've given someone access to one of your files. So if it's possible to auto expire it, then you don't need to remember to revoke the access after a period of time. Okay, moving on to email security. So there are a lot of different acronyms shown in the screenshot here. So what these are records that you need to add into your domain. So if you're not sure how to do this, then best thing is to contact your domain provider and they can help you with setting these up. So there's two main categories here. We've got email anti-spoofing. So these set of records prevent cyber criminals from sending emails pretending to be you, i.e. spoofing your email address, pretending that they're sending emails coming from your email address. And then we've got here email privacy. So this makes it harder for cyber criminals to intercept and read your email in transit. And the NCSC, which is the National Cybersecurity Center website, has a useful email security check. So I recommend looking into that tool. You just need to put your domain in and it will tell you which of these records you have and which ones you don't have. And it will provide some guidance as to how to implement the ones that are missing. Okay, website security. Most of us have a website nowadays, very important for our businesses. Ensure that an SSL certificate is installed So this means that your URL will start with HTTPS instead of just HTTP. We talked about setting up a web application firewall or WAF. This is probably more applicable if you have a self-hosted website like WordPress, for instance. Also, if you have WordPress, install the updates as soon as possible as they become available, because an outdated website is a security vulnerability. Monitor your login and other activity. We'll come to this later on. Use a secure hosting provider. Implement two-factor authentication, which we mentioned earlier, and also strong passwords. Only give admin permissions to those who need it. Remove users who no longer need access to your website, and make sure to back up your website on a regular basis. So we'll talk about backups later on as well, but I can't emphasize how important it is to keep backups, because if you lose your website or if you lose any data, it can be very difficult, if not impossible, to recover. So make sure those backups are in place. Okay, cloud security. This is a collective name for externally managed services which are available to users remotely over the internet. So this is things like Google Drive, accounting software like Xero, MailChimp, Dropbox, Outlook, and so on. So we rely very heavily on cloud services these days. There is something called the shared responsibility model, which means that you as a user are responsible for certain things and the cloud provider is responsible for others. So as a user, you're responsible for secure configuration and access control. So what that means is, we talked earlier about securing your account, so strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and also making sure that you are giving access to users who need it, and only giving the access for the time that they need it for. So being mindful of who you're sharing your data and your files and folders with. Okay, mobile security. So quite straightforward. Make sure to lock your device with a passcode when you're not using it. Keep your device updated. So like laptops and desktops, mobiles have an operating system as well, which needs to be kept up to date. Only use apps from trusted sources, for example, from the App Store, and always install the latest version. Disable USB accessories and locked. So this prevents data from being transferred when unless the correct passcode is entered into the device. And once again, beware of smishing text that we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Okay, let's talk about malware protection, also known as antivirus or anti-malware software. Malware is malicious software which is intended to harm your computer. So you need to make sure you have an anti-malware program installed. And there's a few here: Norton Security, Avast, Bitdefender, Sophos, Malwarebytes, and there's many others available. Keep your software updated. Run a malware scan periodically. So this will show you if there's any infected files on your computer which you need to remove. And you can also install a browser extension which warns you when visiting malicious websites. we'll talk about encryption. This is the process of scrambling data on your hard drive or solid state drive. So if your device is stolen, and even if someone tries to physically remove the drive, they won't be able to read the data without your login password. If you're on Windows, you can use BitLocker. If you're on Mac, then File Vault is available. When setting up encryption on the device, you need to make a note of your recovery code and keep it in a safe place, because if you forget your password and you don't have your recovery code, then you could lose your data forever. So be careful with your recovery code. Logging and monitoring. So many platforms nowadays will keep a record of the login activity, whether this is your website, social media account, email account, and others. So it's a good idea to look at this, and if there's any successful sign-ins that you don't recognize, this could indicate that your account has been compromised. So in this case, you need to change your password immediately. Check your account and see if any unauthorized changes have been made so you can rectify them. And if it's possible, you may be able to set up alerts to warn you whenever there's a login from a new device or location or IP address. This screenshot is actually from my Outlook email account, and I was shocked to find one day that I was getting maybe hundreds of sign-ins into my account. But fortunately, all of them was unsuccessful, apart from the top one, which was myself. But it just goes to show how often people are trying to compromise our accounts, trying to get access. But this is why it's really important to have strong passwords, to have two-factor authentication in place, because that will stop the malicious actors from getting in. Okay, backing up your data, very, very important. Try to keep at least 2 copies of each backup, so one on a physical device and one in the cloud. If backing up onto an external drive, disconnect the device from the internet when not using it, so then it's completely isolated from any online threats. Store physical backups in a different location from where you work, and test your backups regularly to make sure they're working. So you wouldn't want your backup to fail when you need it the most. Again, I just want to stress how important it is to have backups of your information. Right. So we talked about threats and how to protect your organization. So this is what to do when you encounter an incident. So incident response can be complex depending on the size of your organization and the complexity of the incident. So if you are dealing with an incident which you don't feel comfortable with handling, then we do recommend you seek advice. However, here are some basic best practices to follow. So do remove the affected system by disconnecting network cables or turning off Wi-Fi. If it's a mobile device, enable airplane mode. Document the incident. So write down as much as you can about what happened, why it happened, who was involved, when it happened, etc. Consider if authorities or customers, staff, or insurers need to be informed. If the incident involved a data breach, then you need to report it to the Information Commissioner's office within 72 hours. And I attempt to identify the source of the incident. What you don't want to do is to panic. Don't forward any suspicious emails or documents. Don't run anti-malware or other utilities on affected systems. Don't turn off the affected system because this can damage evidence, and do not reconnect affected systems until you are sure they are safe. Okay. And then lastly, some other additional cybersecurity tips. Don't share personal data publicly. Don't enter personal information, for example, payment details, into an unsecured website. When you're working away from your usual location, you can use a virtual private network or VPN. Don't save login details on public or shared computers. Always use the most up-to-date version of your browser. Check the URL of the website that you are visiting to make sure it's not a spoofed or fake website. And be careful when screen sharing. So turn off apps and notifications, because even that little notification that pops up in the corner of your screen is enough to give someone some giveaway information about your business. And also make sure your desktop is clear. Even just having looking at the file names of the files that you have on your desktop can give out some uh, important information that shouldn't be seen by others. Okay. Training and awareness. As we said, the cyber threat landscape is continuously evolving. New threats are emerging all the time. So you need to be aware of the latest threats and how to defend against them. So you can consider taking cybersecurity training courses, also reading blogs, listening to podcasts. Newsletters and LinkedIn also are great ways to keep up to date with cyber news. Learn how to recognize fake apps and websites. And once again, remember that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. So, Cyber Essentials, this is a certification that you might want to get for your organization. It's a government-backed industry recognized scheme which enhances your security posture. It is required for bidding on some government contracts. But even if you're not bidding for government contracts, anyone can apply for this. Whether you're a sole trader or a small business or corporate, it's available to anyone, any business. Even if you don't go for the certification, it's still a good exercise to do. So you can download the question set from the website, and also there's some guidance as well, some booklets. If you look at the application, which is a self-assessment form, it will help you to identify the areas in your organization that need improvement and help you to identify which security measures you should put in place. So I recommend taking a look at that. Okay, so that concludes the main part of this presentation, and I'm going to hand over back to my colleague, Gary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sybil, for that very comprehensive presentation. I'd like to thank her for that, and this is the first time she's done it live like this. So it's the first time it's been presented. In relation to the cyber security audit, if you join the Bexley Talking Business program, and that's for Bexley-based businesses only, I'm afraid. If you're from any other boroughs, we might be providing this in Greenwich later in the year, but we'll see. But right now, we are providing this free if you sign up for our program. But you've got to be Bexley based. We can't take registrations from businesses that are registered or have an address outside of Bexley at the moment. If that changes, we'll let you know. And the link is there to sign up to the program as well. on that slide there. So if you want to, I'll give you a second to copy that. Um, um, and now we're going to take some questions. If you can move on to the next slide, Sybil, please. Okay, I think we've got one from Haley. I just saw it in the chat. Would you advise having a cybersecurity certification displayed on your website? Good question.
Thanks, Haley, for your question. Yes, absolutely. I would highly advise this. It demonstrates to your clients and potential clients that you take cybersecurity seriously. If you have a cybersecurity certification such as Cyber Essentials, it means that you've been you've done the assessment, you've looked at the various different areas of cybersecurity in your business, and you've got the right measures in place to protect your organization from the most common cyber threats. So yes, I would highly advise having the certification and displaying it on your website as a good idea to have. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for that, Sybil and Haley. Any other questions from people right now? You can ask it live as well if you want, as well as through the chat. Okay, while you're still thinking about that, there's a little bit of time left. I've got a question, Sybil. What are the best resources for cybersecurity information?
Yes, so I mentioned the NCSC, or the National Cybersecurity Center. So that is a very good website. It has pretty much all the information you need to know about different security controls, how to protect your business or organization, and all of the advice and guidance on there is free for you to access. And it's also separated into different categories. So there's one section for individuals, one's for small businesses, one's for larger organizations. So it's very easy to find the information that you're looking for.
Oh, okay. And as we just said, you can get more of this for any Bexley-based businesses on our business support program, which is free, incidentally. I should have mentioned that as well, but only for Bexley-based businesses in this case. Here we've got a question from Elena. Where could we gain practical experience through jobs, sim, or find good virtual internships? I feel my CV looks quite full of qualifications, but not too much work experience. I don't think we're here to advise on that today, Elena. This is a cybersecurity presentation. So if you've got any questions about cybersecurity, then we're happy to take those. But this is an entirely different question, I'm afraid, which we haven't got time to go into now. Any other questions from people?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that, Elena, good question. There are some groups which I'm aware of who do help people into cybersecurity careers. So we don't provide that advice and guidance ourselves, but I can give you a couple of links to those groups which you may find helpful.
Okay. A final question for you then, Sybil, from me, because we've gone past 12 now. Do you have any final thoughts or anything to add?
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate what I said near the beginning of the presentation about adopting a cybersecurity mindset. I think it's really important to always keep in mind that every business is vulnerable, whether you're a large or small business, whether you're a charity or profit-making organization. And also, again, reiterating that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Also, cyber is such a big area, and of course, we couldn't cover everything today in this presentation, but hopefully, this has given you the information you need to put the most basic and most important measures in place to protect your organization.
Okay, thank you very much. If you can just move on to the final slide, which I think is our contact details. Yeah, there we go. And as I've already just mentioned, anybody who wants to join our Bexley program, if you're a Bexley-based business, you can get free business support from us. For everybody else, we do provide a range of services, and some of them are free and some of them are chargeable. We've also got a YouTube channel, which has got many of the presentations, and this one will go on it within the next 2 weeks, which is the final link here for YouTube, CNT Associates 8714. If you want to join our mailing list and you're not already on it, which you should be anyway, there's a QR code as well. But thank you very much for all joining us today. The next presentation in this series will be in September, on the 16th of September at 11 a.m. and it's on funding for your business. So it's that's a very important topic, and we'll cover funding for both profit-making businesses, sole traders, companies, and for non-profit making organizations as well. And you'll get a similarly comprehensive presentation as part of this program. So I'd like to thank you for all joining us today. I hope you all have a good summer. It's a beautiful sunny day here in this area where we are, and the weather's going to get even better over the weekend. So have a good weekend, have a good summer, and we'll see you all soon. And thank you for joining us today. It's much appreciated. Thank you.